Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. My name is DeAna. I am a recovered Al-Anon, and I will be leading this meeting. We want to welcome everyone to our Al-Anon Big Book Recovery meeting. This is a step speaker meeting that meets every Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will study the 12 steps by using the precise instructions out of the Big Book of Alcoholics as they relate to us as Al-Anons. Let's get our meeting started. This is the original AA preamble written by the AA Grapevine describing the fellowship in 1940. We studied the preamble with an open mind and open heart to consider how it applies to Al-Anon. This helps us to stay focused on the message of recovery that the pioneers intended while observing the traditions in action. Through the actions taken, based on the instructions of the basic text, we comprehend what the pioneers meant when they described the membership of AA, which is that they work a program of recovery, and they no longer drink. In our case, we no longer obsessed over the alcohol. Through continuous action and study of these principles, the understanding of the value of the original preamble reveals itself. We ask for your humble consideration of our sincere admiration of the pioneers of Alcoholics Anonymous. The simple hope is that we of Al-Anon grow into the same clarity and unity that birthed the original 12-step fellowship, because without them, after all, none of us would be here. We are gathered here because we are faced with the fact that we are powerless over alcohol and unable to do anything about it without the help of a power greater than ourselves. We feel that each person's religious views, if any, are his own affair. The simple purpose of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to show what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be. In order to form a habit of depending upon and referring all we do to that power, we must first apply ourselves to some diligence. By often repeating these acts, they become habitual, and the help rendered becomes natural to us. We have come to know that as alcoholics, we suffer from a serious disease for which medicine has no cure. Our condition may be the result of an allergy which makes us different from other people. It has never been permanently cured by any treatment with which we are familiar, and the only relief we have to offer is absolute abstinence, the second meaning of AA. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Each member squares his debt by helping others recover. An Alcoholics Anonymous member is an alcoholic who, through the application of and adherence to the AA program, has forsworn the use of any and all alcoholic beverages in any form. The moment he takes so much as one drop of beer, wine, spirits, or any other liquid containing alcohol, he automatically loses all status as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not interested in sobering up drunks who are not sincere in their desire to stay sober for all time. Not being reformers, we offer our experience only to those who want it. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and on which we can join in harmonious action. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. Those who do not recover are people who will not or simply cannot give themselves to the simple program. Now, you may like our program or you may not, but the simple fact remains that it works, and we believe is our only chance to recover. There is a vast amount of fun included in the AA fellowship. Some people might be shocked at our seemingly worldliness and levity, but underneath there lies a deadly earnestness and a full realization that we must put first things first, and with each of us, the first thing is the solution to our alcoholic problem. To drink is to die. Faith must work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. In order to set our tone for this meeting, I ask that we bow our heads in a few moments of silent prayer and meditation, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a big book, it's time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, follow the directions in it, and learn what it means to be an AA. A sponsor is anyone who's had a psychic change as a result of working the steps and has the willingness to work with others. For those looking for a sponsor to guide them through the steps, please stay tuned and have your pens ready to record phone numbers immediately after the meeting. Each Al-Anon group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose, that of carrying the message to the Al-Anon who still suffers. That is our primary spiritual aim. Our job as a group is to provide people with a place to learn about and work the steps. It has been our experience that working the steps consistently provides us with a better, saner life. We consider all else to be an outside issue, and this includes personal problems. The proper venue for sharing such problems is with the sponsor. This is, after all, where real recovery takes place and working the steps with a sponsor. We are just so glad that we are all here, and we are all here because we're not all there. There will be a period of fellowship after the meeting. If you have questions, if you need a sponsor, if you need to check in or get current, or if you want to discuss other literature, please stick around for the fellowship. That would be a better time for these subjects. Okay. So this is a step study meeting. So each Wednesday of this month, we're covering a different series of steps. Last week we went over steps 4, 5, and 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over steps 7 through 9 today, but I'm going to first review the first 6 steps. I'm going to go over the first 6 steps and then bring us up to 7, 8, and 9, which we have not yet covered. Okay. And if anybody's new on the line, I'm going to try to reference pages here and there when I can. So we're starting, if you take a look at where the steps are listed, because I mentioned we're going to recap some, page 59 and 60 are where you can find the steps, but you're going to look at page 59 now if you want. Step 1, just to recap, it says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Okay. And if you're new on the line and you're wondering why are we studying the big book, again, this is the purest document in existence. This is what people have used to get free from their, not only alcoholism, but we can get free as Al-Anons, and there's over 200 fellowships that use this program of action. That's a testament to how powerful this book is and the program of recovery. So that's why we are using this. We, as Al-Anon, we study the big book not only for the reasons I just mentioned, but also because we want to understand the alcoholic. We need to understand the illness and be able to, understand what they're up against, what they have going on. And also, we study the big book to understand our own illness as chronic obsessors, obsessing about the alcoholic, understand our own illness as Al-Anon. And we also study the book because we're working at 12 steps. I know when I first came in, I had certain ideas about what the alcoholic was and I was and how they were different. And, usually I came out right and they were wrong. But turns out that we have some similarities to the alcoholic. We do have some differences too. And I'll talk about that, but we do have some similarities. So The alcoholic has a two-part illness. They have an illness in their mind and in their body. Okay. Now, the body of the alcoholic. They have a substance problem. Once they ingest the substance of alcohol, they don't process alcohol the way, others do. They react abnormally to it. And once they take a drink, it ignites in their body, it ignites this phenomenon of craving where maybe they just intend to have one, but they end up drinking way more than intended. They want the third drink more than they wanted the first. They lose control with it. And that's the body component. They experience powerlessness over alcohol. They don't have the power to stop or control it once they start into it. Okay. Even if they want to stop, drinking, they just can't do it. So that's the body component. And we don't have that as Al-Anons. And I should say most of us. I mean, certainly there are some alcoholics in Al-Anon as well. But if we're just talking about an Al-Anon that has no other things going on, we as Al-Anons have the mind component just as the alcoholic does. Okay? Meaning our illness centers in our mind. And when myself as an Al-Anon, when I try to manage and control the alcoholic, that sets off my illness. I then lose control as well. I do more than intended. So even though Al-Anons, we don't have the body component, we have the mind component. As Al-Anons, we're not able to just live and let live. Let the alcoholic be. Let them sort out their own consequences, not worry about them. No, what do we do as Al-Anons? We think that we know better. And that's just our default setting. We have these ideas of what should be and shouldn't be, and we just, we treat them as the gospel or truth. We find ourselves interfering in the alcoholic's life, trying to, buffer them from consequences. We may try to plead with them to stop drinking. We may try to manipulate them through doing different things. We may try to, try to play the puppeteer, if you will, to try to control, manage, manipulate, so things go our way. And in essence, that the alcoholic basically, toes the line or does what we want. Okay. Now, for us as Al-Anons, when we're in our illness, it may seem like this is a good, we're doing good because we might be in some ways helping. But really what we're doing is we're interfering with higher power. We're interfering with the alcoholic having their own journey and experience. If an alcoholic is to reach that miserable state, that pit of despair where they realize they're done, but we as the Al-Anon keep rushing in to, I'm just giving some examples, bail them out of jail or take the car keys away or, it could come in innumerable forms where we try to interfere with them and manage the consequences of their drinking. We get in the way of them experiencing, their miserable, rock bottom. So that is not helpful. That actually is harmful. The sickness that we have is, so it's really easy for us as Al-Anons to look at the alcoholic and think, oh, they're drinking again, geez, and point fingers and just really, comment on their illness. But as Al-Anons, when we become chronic, it means that, we've got this mind that just keeps taking us back over and over again to worrying about the alcoholic, wondering what they're doing, obsessing, essentially, obsessing. And are we able to just live and let live? Are we able to let the alcoholic just live and let live? No, we're not. We've got to interfere. You know, and granted, we may have circumstances where it's heartbreaking, you know. Sometimes there's, you know, little kids involved, or, you know, people we really care and love about, or care about and love. And yes, it could be really hard to, you know, be around that and such. They may be up against, you know, where they're very, very sick, where they may have serious disabilities as a result of their alcoholism, or they may have hurt others, or, you know, they may be in danger of losing their own lives. But here's the thing, we are not God. We can't play God for them, which, you know, playing God is essentially, you know, all that worrying and meddling and, you know, trying to interfere and affect outcomes, you know. Al-Anon is a program to help those of us that have this sickness learn how to live our own lives and be focused on what we need to do rather than focus on what others should be doing, particularly the alcoholic. You know, and also, you know, Al-Anon helped teach me and give me discernment on when should I take the action. You know, when should I do something and when should I not? Because, yes, you know, we may still have thoughts of, oh, well, should I do this or should I do that? But once we get recovered, you know, we have we're tapped into this power that can provide that insight to us in terms of, no, let that person do their thing. Or if we do need to do something, you know, we're at least tapped into power where we can be helpful from an unselfish motive. You know, we're getting the clear guidance to do that. Yeah, so that quote unquote helping the alcoholic that we were doing, it really wasn't helping. You know, it's like we're trying to, like I said, prevent these consequences from happening. And it's really a selfish motive to do that, because we're doing that for several reasons. It could be, you know, we just don't want to we don't want to risk them wrecking the car or killing somebody, which I realize it sounds, you know, but we're not going to be able to babysit them forever is the point. They're going to do what they're going to do regardless. You know, we may be worried that, oh, you know, we got to make sure they don't drink too much when they go to work tomorrow because we're worried about how the bills are going to get paid. Or, you know, we got to make sure they don't drink too much because then they'll embarrass us. You know, we're trying to manage all these things. But you know what? When we're focused on the alcoholic, we are not focused on ourselves. And that is a selfish motive because we get to take a break from our own stuff and dealing with our own stuff. Yeah, we can get focused on someone else. And here's the thing, we also feel superior. We also get to feel like a do-gooder or superior, you know, like, oh, well, you know, we're in a clear state of mind. They're not, you know, and be judgmental of them and, get the feel goods. They call it the feel goods from maybe it seemed like we really helped out on something or prevented something terrible from happening. But again, you know, we get in the way, of what what needs to happen for them to come to the part of their journey where they're going to discover, are they, you know, are they so sick that they need help and that they want help? And we get in the way of that. So, you know, just recapping, they've got, you know, an alcoholic has a two-part illness. It is important that we as Al-Anons understand that the alcoholic illness, they have a two-part illness. The body component, they can't ingest even a drop of alcohol. If they do, you know, in their body, they lose control. They drink more than intended or go on a spree. And then the mental component is they can't stay stopped. Okay. They may have many reasons to stop and really want to stick to those reasons, but they're going to go back. Okay. Now, as us as Al-Anons, we have that mental component, as I mentioned already, and I already mentioned some of what's going on in there, but it's really tricky with the Al-Anon because our illness just centers in our mind and what our mind tells us. So for the alcoholic, their mind tells them they can handle the alcohol. It lies to them so that they'll go back into it, and alcohol essentially gives them ease and comfort. Okay? That's what it does for them. As an Al-Anon, I get ease and comfort from obsessing about another alcoholic, from meddling, controlling, saving, fixing. And what my mind tells me is this time it's going to be different. I can handle it. So maybe it's a thought about the alcoholic. And maybe it's a thought, and then I want to take the action. And my mind might kind of warn me like, oh, this probably isn't a good idea. But then what wins out is it is a good idea. I got this. And we as Al-Anons get a sense of ease and comfort from doing that. We just keep going back to it. So that's how we're like the alcoholics. We swear off of something because, eventually we see how crazy we are and we're making the people around us crazy, and we just say, I'm not going to do that anymore. And we may try lots of things to stop, but then we go back to it. So, we have this mental component. So that's, touching on step, 1. Step 2, again, these are found on page 59, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So a lot of people, when they read step 2, they think, oh, they're talking about a power. What's that mean? What am I going to have to do? I would just say hang tight. It's not what you think. Okay. But what we learned in step 1 is we learned what our problem is. That we're powerless. We have a mind that keeps taking us back. It's unmanageable. So if we're without power, step 1 spells powerlessness. We don't have the power to do it. We've lost the choice on whether or not we're going to pick up that first obsessive thought. Because basically, as Al-Anons, we think like the alcoholic. So if we don't have any power over that, then we need to tap into power. And that's what step 2 is getting at. Step 2 is the solution. And the solution notice the solution doesn't say, get the alcoholic to stop drinking. The solution is not, get the alcoholic just to do X, Y, Z so that they're not tempted to drink. No, it says, it's going to restore us, the person that's afflicted with Al-Anonism, it's going to restore us to sanity. That's really, really important because as Al-Anons, we spend so much of our time focused on the other, pointing fingers what the other should be doing, and as I mentioned, a lot of people can get turned off by the sense of what's this power, or you might read in the big book some words that might turn you off. Some people, if they read the word higher power, God, spiritual program, they think, oh, geez. Let me just say, this is not a religious program. Yes, they use the word God. This was written in the 1930s. They also use in the book different words to explain a higher power. They use words like creative intelligence, spirit of the universe. It is actually, it's broad what we can, higher power, it's broad what we can call this power. But basically, if step 1 is we don't have power, we're going to have to tap into power. So that power has to be something greater than us and something outside of us. We can't do it. If we think we can, then we need to go try some more things, but then we don't need a 12-step program. If we're realizing that we're screwed between the ears when it comes to this thing, screwed between the ears because we keep doing it over and over again and making ourselves miserable, then perhaps then we can accept spiritual help. But step 2 here's the cool thing. People will say, oh, I'm agnostic or I'm atheist or I had a higher power I grew up with and I just don't like that idea. This is why this program is so inclusive. And it is very inclusive. Number one, it's not religious, it's spiritual, meaning it teaches us how to live in a way where we practice spiritual principles that are basically common to most different things out there. Spiritual practice. Okay? It's very, but what makes it very broad, roomy, and inclusive is that you get to choose a power of your own conception and understanding. Okay? So, like for me, my higher power that I grew up with didn't work for me. Okay? It was a God that I felt like was like up in the sky and looking down on me and just waiting for me to screw up. And, I was afraid, I don't want God to see me doing something wrong, or I would treat God like a Santa Claus. I would pray for what I wanted. Oh, please let me have this, let me have this, let me have this. It was kind of like I treated God like a father that I was very much afraid of and a Santa Claus. And that just didn't work for me. So, you know what? I did to take step 2, which is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I didn't need to think up right away what this other power was going to look like or be or have. I just needed to have some very simple things in place. And these are the things that anybody just needs to have in place. And that is hope. Do you have hope that what worked for another recovered Al-Anon will work for you? That is it. Okay? You do not need full-on faith that this is going to work. You can have a little skepticism like, oh, it seems a little funny, but hey, it worked for others, so maybe, just maybe it'll work for me. That's all you need, that maybe, just maybe, and you take action. So again, you don't need firm belief or firm faith to start. And if the idea, again, of higher power or the word God or spiritual program turns you off, basically, if we take a proper step 1, meaning if we have tried to stop obsessing about others, particularly the alcoholic, and we can't, and our lives are just getting more miserable at the moment, that is us trying to run the show, and those are our own ideas that are running things. How well is that working? If it's not working, then we're going to need to be open-minded. We're going to have to consider some ideas that we haven't considered before. And that is also part of step 2. Step 2 is about putting aside what we think we know. So, step 2 really just comes down to hope and willingness. Are you willing to look at things a little differently? Are you, willing to consider, this, that, and the other? Again, because let's look at the evidence. How well has life been working out for you? I know for me it wasn't working out at all. So I was willing to just take those small steps to say, yeah, okay, this worked for somebody else. I don't really understand this, but hey, I want this. And that's all we need. Me thinking people should live their lives a certain way, because I had a father and I had a nephew with young kids and I had, people in my life that I cared about that had alcohol in their lives, and, I thought I knew best. And where was that getting me? Well, first of all, nobody was changing. And second of all, I was just getting sicker and sicker. And boy, life was miserable. I was getting nitpicky with my husband, whether I verbalized it or not. It felt like this gray cloud was over everything. Life just did not feel good. But, I came to Al-Anon and I talked with people that, and heard their stories. And what I got from talking to these people that were recovered was I got hope. And, I got a sponsor, and, I wanted freedom. I wanted freedom around obsessing and thinking about the alcoholics in my life because I knew that, I just, I didn't have peace and I wanted peace. Okay. So, yeah, basically I wanted what my sponsor had. So, all we need is some willingness. That's all we need. Willingness and some hope. Again, the reason why this program is so inclusive is we can come from different religious backgrounds or have no religious background. But bottom line is, if we just take the action, like I said, just that hope and willingness, we can get recovered. It's really a beautiful thing there. So step 3 is, again, page 59. It says, we decided to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And that, so turning our will and our life over, that means turning our thoughts and our actions over to this power greater than ourselves. Yeah. And that's basically turning everything over. And I know when I got to step 3, my sponsor said, DeAna, how well is your life working out for you with you trying to manage the alcoholics and, trying to stop yourself from obsessing and, rushing in to do things? How well is that going for you? And to me, the answer was, well, it's not. That's why I'm here. I'm miserable. I don't, life just doesn't seem very fun to me. And yeah. So that was humbling for me because, with Al-Anon, we often think we've got all the right ideas, that we're the smartest person in the room or one of the smartest people in the room. We've got great ideas. Well, how well are my ideas working out? Well, they're not, So, step 3 is really also, at step 3, it's a decision step. We're not going to know how at step 3 to turn our life and will over to God. We're not going to know how to do that. That's why it's not a 3-step program. That's why there's a program of action that we work. Because it can't be just a theory. It can't be just an idea. We're going to have to take action. This is a program of experience. So as Al-Anons, we're real good at this analysis paralysis. We want to think things through and think about them and think about them and think about them. But, we need to do the opposite of that. We need to take action and work the steps. And then after we, work a step, then we can look back and say, oh, that's what that was like. That's what that was about. Oh, man. So it's really about the action. So the first 3 steps are just decision steps, okay? At step 3, I do also want to say, we're going to have to be willing to go to any length for recovery over our Al-Anonism. Go to any length over this. So that means we're going to have to be open-minded. We're going to have to set aside old ideas. Step 3 also means I'm going to need to follow my sponsor's directions. It means I'm going to need to follow the directions in the book. And the reason we need a sponsor is because they've been through it. They're on the other side of it. They're recovered, and they can provide that objectivity that we need. Yeah. So let's see. So step 3 is also, it's understood you'll get a sponsor at that point, and you're going to start launching into action. They use these words in the big book after step 3. We launch into action, and we vigorously commence because it's a program of action. That's the only way we're going to get well. Yeah. So, and again, I was very attracted to the idea that I could be happy regardless of what anybody else is doing. I think that's the ultimate sense of freedom. The ultimate sense of freedom. And then on top of that, I have a program that I can work so that when life does get pretty yucky sometimes, I don't have to go and try to control somebody to make myself feel better. I work my program. So, yeah. Going to have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get well and follow a sponsor's directions. And So let's see here. We'll move on. So step 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So that means we're going to need to be looking at things from a different angle. Step 4 is where, we're going to invite our higher power in to help us be honest and thorough. We haven't necessarily gotten a real honest look at ourselves. We've been playing a story that's basically just suited ourselves. We've come out like the victim, the good guy, the savior. That's how our stories end. Even if we acknowledge we did some wrongs, it always ends up that way. Well, in step 4 of this inventory, we're going to be getting a different look at these things. So, basically, we have shown up in life in certain ways and harmed people. We're going to get a different look at that. And why do we need to get a look at that? Because we have blocked ourselves off from a higher power. So, in the inventory, we're going to go through some of the stuff from our past in order to, get a different perspective. So first part of our inventory is resentment. And a resentment is anything we replay, relive, refeel. The stories in our head that we have about the alcoholic, and it can also be non-alcoholic, family, coworkers, friends. And when we are playing that kind of movie reel of our stories and how people did us wrong and this, that, and the other, we're not able to sense the presence of a higher power in our lives or do what that higher power would have us do. It cuts us off. Yeah. So, so when we do an inventory, we are just looking to get down, some key points. So for example, resentment inventory, the leftmost column would be, who were we resentful at? And then the next column would be why. So in the why, we're not going to be writing the great American novel about why we're upset with somebody because, we've been doing that already. And where's that gotten us? We're just going to take down some key points, Page 63, it talks about we're going to launch, this is about step 4. We're going to launch on a course of vigorous action. It says that this is a vital and crucial step. But it's got to be followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor, or in our case, our obsessive thinking, was but a symptom. We had to get down to causes and conditions. Okay. So, yeah, so our real problem really isn't even our trying to fix, manage, control, and save the alcoholic. Our problem even goes deeper than that. And doing this inventory, we're going to get to know some of our grosser handicaps and defects. So ultimately, it tells us in the book that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of our troubles. So that's our real problem. And, when we get selfish, it manifests in we want to control the alcoholic. Page 64, it says a business that takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. This is just a fact-facing and fact-finding process. It's an effort to discover about the truth of the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods to get rid of them permanently and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he can't fool himself about values. So imagine you have a grocery store and you've got some expired things on the shelf, expired cans of goods. As a business owner, that's not going to be helpful to you because people aren't going to buy those. So you're going to go out of business. So if you want to be a successful business owner, you're going to have to take inventory, take stock, get rid of the old stuff, put new stuff on the shelf. Well, we're doing something similar with this inventory. We're taking stock honestly. Page 67, it says resentment's the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. It's funny because we Al-Anons are real good about having a good memory about what others have done to us. So doing the resentment inventory first, that's not a problem for us because, often we can, fire off people we're irritated at, Yeah. So resentments not only, destroy alcoholics, it destroys us as Al-Anon. So what are we going to do? We're going to set them on paper. So that leftmost column of the inventory, we're going to list people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves, why were we angry? In most cases, we found our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, or our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up. Okay, so we put these things down on paper, we're going to get a different, a sponsor's going to help us get a different perspective on it. See. Now, so here's the thing, we may have had people that harmed us and wronged us. And we're absolutely, if somebody says, hey, I want to hold on to my anger, I'm still ticked off at this person, then that's their own affair, but, we're just not going to get recovered unless we are willing to set aside some other things. Now, here's the great thing. If we continue to work the steps, and maybe somebody's at a point where they say, you know what, I don't see how I can forgive this person, but I'm willing to go forward because I'm going to let this higher power work on me. Then that's awesome. And we do get changed from the inside out. Okay. Next part of our inventory is fears, page 67 and 68. It says, notice the word fears bracketed alongside the difficulties of Mr. Brown and Mr. Jones, the employer and the wife. The book gives us detailed instructions of how to do this. It says, fear is a short word that somehow touches every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding threat. Our existence was shot through with it. So fear is different than resentment. Fear is when we're afraid we're going to lose what we have or we're not going to get what we want. And boy, as Al-Anons, we're riddled with fear when we come in. And we can't be fully present and really enjoy our lives when we have all that fear. Because what we're doing is we're constantly worrying about the future or rehashing the past and what are people going to think and contingency planning. And we're wasting a lot of time. Page 69, it says, in this way, the third inventory is sex talk. How did we show up using our sex powers selfishly? How did we harm others in relationships? So page 69, it says, in this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We're going to look at the harms we've caused to others in romantic relationships. It says we subjected each relationship to the test. Was it selfish or not? We ask God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. We remember always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, neither to be despised or loathed. Okay? So, when we're done with our fourth step, we're going to meet with our sponsor and work step 5. Step 5 is we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So, it's vital that we work with the sponsor so that we can see, where we were wrong. Okay. We're not always going to be able to see that. And that's why we need a sponsor. Okay. We have looked at our life through a lens of basically, getting our way, and we need a different perspective. Okay. We usually are focused on how others wronged us. Step 5, they talk about it, page 72, 73. They say this is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. So, you might be doing your fifth step with a sponsor and who's somebody maybe you don't know that long. You just met them recently and could be virtually, which is a lot of times how people are doing it. You might be afraid, like, wow, why do I want to, unearth all these deep, dark secrets to this person I barely know? And, it tells us in the book, it says, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking, or in our case, our obsessive thinking over the alcoholic. Okay? So we need that other person to be there, to see things from a different perspective. And if you're worried, oh, they're going to judge me, they're going to think I'm nuts, or they're going to really, oh, this is embarrassing, I can't possibly. Remember, they themselves have gone through this, and so there's likely nothing you're going to say that's going to shock them, and their job isn't to judge. Their job is, again, to help someone see things from a different angle. So that's basically what that is. So we're going to need to be thorough and honest in this inventory, and also, sharing this with our sponsor. So we don't want to be keeping things to ourselves. Maybe there's some deep, dark secret we hope we would just take to the grave. Well, if you want to get well, you're going to have to go to any length. You're going to have to share it all. There are certain things that us Al-Anons can't do, and that's, keep secrets and, just, be resentful. That's poison for us. Okay? Yeah. So, we're going to move on to 75. It says, it says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. So after we have shared our inventory with our sponsors, we're going to take an hour of quiet time. And, we're going to take the actions that it says on page 75 in that paragraph. It says, you're going to review what you've done. You're going to connect with your higher power. And basically, you're going to ask a series of questions that basically are, is your work solid so far? Meaning, have you been thorough and honest to the best of your ability? Because you're building a foundation. You're building something. So you don't want to be dishonest and be secretive, that kind of thing. After that hour of quiet time, then we move on to step 6. It says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And then, so let's see. It says we've emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Page 76. Are we ready to let God remove them all from us? These things which we admitted are objectionable. Can you take them, everyone? Can you take them all, everyone? If we still cling to something, we ask God to help us to be willing. So that's a prayer. Anytime it says we ask. So again, if we're in step 6, and we're like, oh, I just don't know if I can let go of this anger or whatnot, we pray. We ask God for the willingness to do it. Okay? And we're going to be doing that a lot in this program. And then step 7 says we humbly ask Him to remove all of our shortcomings, and when we were ready, we say something like this. I'm sorry, let me go back. I want to read step 7. Step 7 is humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Okay? All right. So, then there's a prayer that we say, a 7-step prayer, and that's found on page 76. Okay? And, basically we're just asking God to remove these defects of character so that we can be useful. That we can be useful to Him and the people about us. Now, we are human, so it's not as if we say these prayers and we're never going to fall short, or we're not ever going to have resentment or selfishness. That's why we work the rest of the steps. It's a program for life. It's a design for living. It's going to help us deal with when fear comes up, selfishness, whatnot, all these kinds of things. All right, so we're going to move on to step 8 and 9. So step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Okay, so step 8, we're going to make a list of all persons we've harmed, So that list is already done from our 4-step inventory. We take the names from the 4-step inventory, put them on this 8-step list. We also pray to our higher power and ask him to show us, is there anybody else that we harmed that we don't have a resentment in connection with? You know, maybe we gossiped about somebody. Maybe we owe money to someone that didn't come up on our inventory. Maybe we flaked out with plans or were cold or withdrawn. You know, there may be more names we need to add, but most of the list is done. Yeah, it says page 76, so this is going to be steps 8 and 9. But I want to go back to step 8 real quick. So step 8, we have a list, and I know when I did it, I marked down people that I felt like I could make amends to right away. Like family or friends or people like that I'm pretty sure they were going to, you know, be okay with stuff. And we do want to do our easier amends first. Okay, that's what we're going to do. And then there were other categories, such as, there was now, I'm ready to now, and then there's later, like, okay, not really now, but if you need reason, and then maybe, like maybe I will, maybe I won't, and then never. At this point, feeling like you could never make amends to them. So just put some check marks. And that really helped simplify it for me so I could hone in on what I could do first and not so overwhelmed and bogged down. And then again, that's what a sponsor helps us to do, to make these things streamlined and more easy. Let's see. Step 9, it says, may direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So, we've caused damage in the past, and we're going to have to repair that damage. You know, it says, it says, we go to them in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ills, healing and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person. Simply, we tell him we will never get over in our case, obsessive thinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what to do. His faults are not to be discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the results. It says in 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. So what that's telling us is that, you know, oftentimes it's likely going to go pretty well, these amends. Our mind wants to conjure up these terrible fear stories. Ultimately, we're not in control of outcomes, but we need to make amends for the harms we've done to others. And the amends process, you know, we're going to always pray about the amends and always discuss it with the sponsor first. Why? Because we need to make sure we need to make amends, number 1. Number 2, we need to make sure we're not going to do more harm. That can be tricky in some situations. So that's why a sponsor is vital. We're not here to throw people under the bus. Maybe we need to make an amends for something like stealing and maybe somebody else is involved. Well, they would implicate someone else. So we're going to discuss that with our sponsor. We may not, you know, be doing that amends. It just depends. In order to make an amends, we have to meet certain requirements, which are we have to have a sincere desire to right the wrong. We have to have forgiven them, you know. I know when I needed to make amends to my dad, I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to do that. But God worked on me little by little. You know, I said these prayers. I just worked my program day by day. I didn't worry about it. I knew that God would show me when the time was right, but I needed to be willing to say, I will make an amends at some point. Okay, because I had previously thought my dad did some things I thought were unforgivable, and God's shown me that it's not my job to forgive somebody really. You know, and people are human. They mess up. They're still deserving of love and tolerance. But I needed God to show me that way. I couldn't make my mind up to do that. And it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen, but I just worked the steps day by day. So we make our first amends, and usually we want to do an easier one, as I said, you know, something like the family or significant other or someone. And then, you know, we're considered recovered. You know, our obsession starts to lift. And we continue to make those amends as we go along. But we're going to then, work steps 10, 11, and 12, which I'll cover next week. But the amends, we really it's a scary step. It can be, but that's why there's so many prayers around here, and we say them, and we can do it. And our sponsor helps us as well. But it says we cannot shrink at anything. We're going to have to be willing to do this. But, we have God's help. We're not doing this alone. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to move into closing here. Seventh tradition, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This group does not have a payment structure in place and currently requires no overhead expenses. If you would like to fulfill Tradition 7, please direct contributions directly to Al-Anon World Service Office by visiting alanon.org. For questions about this meeting or if you're looking for a sponsor, please send emails to alanonbigbookrecovery@gmail.com. Recordings can be accessed on YouTube by searching @Al-Anon Step Speaker in the YouTube search box. If you are interested in other Al-Anon meetings that follow the Big Book, please visit www.alanonbigbookssolutiongroup.org. Reading from Big Book, page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But you obviously cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Now let's have a moment of silence for the Al-Anon who still suffers, followed by the Lord's Prayer, or a prayer of your own choosing said in silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.